Oh, konta. Let's talk about some nerdy shit. If you've ever moved into a house that was advertised as X amount of square meters and immediately felt like some of those meters were stuck in traffic, you're not imagining it.
But it's becoming increasingly obvious. I can deny it no longer. I am small.
Your house didn't shrink. It was measured differently than you assumed. Building surface areas, why every house is smaller than promised. In the Netherlands, building size isn't a vibe or a rough estimate. It's regulated by a measurement standard called NEN 2580, and that standard works like a funnel. You start with a full building, then slowly subtract everything you're technically not allowed to count as usable. The problem is that construction costs are calculated near the top of that funnel, while property value lives at the bottom. If you don't understand what disappears in between, the numbers will never make sense.
This is fucking bullshit, okay? These fucking assholes, these fucking assholes! The fuck!
NEN 2580 exists to make building sizes comparable. Without it, every developer would measure differently and every house would somehow be approximately larger than it feels. Without this standard, real estate would be the Wild West. Realtors could measure to the middle of the wall, the outside of the wall, or ignore the attic entirely.
But right now, I'd appreciate it if you'd deposit your weapon in the receptacle by the swinging doors, which concealing of it on your person in the first place was a violation of the rules of this establishment and an offense against local norms.
And if I don't?
So instead of guessing, the system forces every building through the same sequence of measurements. At each step, certain spaces are removed based on strict rules, structural elements, circulation, unusable height, and shared functions. What matters is not just what gets removed, but when. Because the earlier a square meter disappears, the more expensive it becomes. A meter removed at the end affects value. A meter removed at the start still costs full construction price. As a designer, this helps you maximize a layout. Everything starts with BVO, bruto vloeroppervlakte. This is the total area of the building measured from the outside of the exterior walls or gross floor area. Crucially, the BVO is the sum of all stories. If you have a 3-story house, you calculate the footprint of each floor and add them together. However, there is a catch. If there is a void or a loft where you can look down to the floor below, that empty air doesn't count as floor area on the upper level. You only count the physical floor you can stand on. This number is critical because construction costs are almost always based on BVO. At current Dutch prices, that's currently 1.8 to 2.5k euros per square meters. BVO includes everything: walls, staircases, shafts, technical spaces, roof slopes, and spaces you'll never stand in. If it's built, it's counted, and if it's counted, you pay for it. Next comes NVO, netto vloeroppervlakte, the net floor area. To get here, we subtract the totale oppervlakte, which is walls, columns, and structural thickness. This is where the reality of construction becomes visible. In an average house, walls alone take up 10 to 15% of the total floor area. That means tens of thousands of euros goes into materials that can't be furnished, can't be rented, and can't be sold as living spaces. If a house costs 3 tons to build, it's entirely normal for 30k to 45k of that budget to exist purely as wall thickness. Necessary? Yes, but from a cost efficiency perspective, it's brutal. Then we reach GO, gebruiksoppervlakte, usable area. The most important number for residential buildings. This is where the system becomes emotionally painful. Pipe shafts disappear, structural pillars vanish, and then the 1.5 meter rule arrives. Any floor area where the ceiling height is below 1.5 meter is no longer considered usable, unless
I am small.
This mainly affects attics and sloped roofs. The irony is that these spaces are often expensive to build. Roof construction, insulation, and finishing costs just as much per square meter as the rest of the house. But once the ceiling drops below 1.5 meters, these meters stop counting towards the official size and therefore toward the market value. You pay full price, the value does not follow. For a real estate agent, the GO, usable area, is the fairness standard. Here's why they use it instead of the others. Consumer protection. By using the usable area, agents can't count the 40 centimeter thick stone walls of an old farmhouse as living space. The 1.5 meter rule, agents are strictly forbidden from counting any floor space where the ceiling is lower than 1.5 meters as usable area. If they do, they can be held liable for misrepresentation. Appraisal compatibility. Bank appraisers, taxateurs, use the usable area to determine the value of the house for your mortgage. The one exception, BVO, while agents market the house using GEO, usable area, they will often still list the BVO, gross floor area, and the inhoud, the volume, in the technical details or the brochure of the house. They do this because 1. Context, it shows the scale of the building, and 2. Renovation potential. If a house has massive BVO but a small GEO, perhaps due to a large uninsulated attic or thick internal walls, it signals to a buyer that there is hidden space they could potentially convert into usable living area later. Did Anne Frank's family buy a house with a big gross area and a small usable area? Shit, you can make a secret room. Okay, good. That still has, okay, it's super inefficient, but goddamn, that still has potential. Secret room. World War III is almost here. You can have a secret room. Great. Pro tip. If you're browsing Funda, the Dutch website for buying and renting, the number you see is the GEO, the usable area. But keep an eye on the BVO, the gross area, in the fine print. If the BVO is much larger than the GEO, you're looking at a house with thick walls or a lot of dead space, like lofts and low ceiling attics. You're paying for the shell of a big house but only getting the pearl of a small one. How do you know if a building is well designed? Look at the delta between the BVO and the GEO. In a perfect world, you want your usable area to be at least 85% of your gross. If you're looking at a floor plan where the BVO is 100 square meters but the GEO is only 70 square meters, you're losing 30% of your space to walls, shafts, and low ceilings. From a construction cost perspective, that's a disaster. You are paying to build, heat, and maintain 100 meters, but you only get to live in 70. Always aim for a delta of 15% or less to get the most bang for your buck. As we move down the funnel, circulation becomes the enemy. Vertical circulation, stairs and elevators, is removed when calculating VWO, verhuurbaar vloeroppervlakte or leasable floor area. For commercial buildings, these elements are among the most complex and expensive parts of a structure, yet they don't generate rentable area. Horizontal circulation, hallways and corridors affect GNO, gerealiseerde nuttige oppervlakte, or realized useful area, and FNO, functionele nuttige oppervlakte, or functional useful area. Hallways are necessary, but they are financially inefficient. They cost almost as much to build as rooms and add no functional value. A building with long corridors can look generous in BVO gross area, but once circulation is removed, the usable area drops sharply. Good design minimizes movement spaces. Bad design quietly bills you for walking. At the very bottom of the funnel sits WO, woon of werkoppervlakte, living/working area. This is the space you live or work in. To get here, we subtract layout loss and storage, and this distinction matters more than people realize. What remains is the pure space, the bedrooms, living rooms, and workspaces. A good rule of thumb is to aim for a loss of about max 20% from your usable area, GO, unless you really want a lot of your useful floor area to go to storage. Living space is expensive to finish. Storage spaces, garages, and sheds are far cheaper, often 800 to 1.2k euros per square meter. Your total construction price is not one number. It's a weighted average of high-cost living spaces, low-cost auxiliary space, and space that disappear along the way. Basically a shaft. You're getting shafted. WO is where value is finally assigned, long after the money has already been spent. Here's the part most people miss. A house with a BVO gross area of 200 square meters at 2k per square meters costs about 4 ton to build. After walls, circulation, shafts, roof slopes, and layout loss, you might end up with 140 square meters of usable area. That means your real price isn't 2k per square meters, it's 2.9k per usable meter. Building surface areas. Why every house is smaller than promised. The house didn't lie. The funnel just did what it was designed to do. I hope I gave you guys an insight in what you're paying for when it comes to housing. Honestly, this video is for myself for future endeavors, but if you got something out of it or were entertained by how psychotically my mind processes information. Thank you for watching. Anyway, till next time.